Just before Christmas, the lovely people over at Krydrufi.com sent me this all-in-one modular art box for me to test and review and just see how it worked from a miniature painting perspective. The general idea is if you haven't got a lot of desk space, or if you are a hobbyist that needs to take their kit and go somewhere, you can connect and disconnect this and make it how you want to fit your desk and workspace. I have plenty of space where I am, but this is still a useful thing, and I actually have adopted it over my standard water pot. So inside the big box they sent me, there's a small box here which contains, I think, the sponges and wet palette paper, and inside there you can see this is the whole thing clipped together for easy storage. So at the top you've got the two water pots that can come in and out of that big pot, and then the attached clipped panels underneath. So these are the water pots, and they've got at the moment the silicone kind of brush holders attached. And at the bottoms of each pot they've got a little silicone pad that's ridged to help clean your brush. And you can see these come out for ease of use, and you can use one or both if you want to, and then the whole top section detaches. And that's the key with this, they all clip together. So those fit in there, so you can then carry it around like a dual water pot, useful for miniature painters as we keep metallic paints and normal paints in two separate pots normally. These silicone brush holders unclip, and there's the silicone texture pad that sits at the bottom of each of the water panels. Super useful for not damaging the delicate brushes. These brush holders, there's two sets. One's got a little collection tray underneath it, so you can drip dry your brushes. The others you can potentially keep them in the water. Also they attach to the outside of the pots as well as the inside if you want even more modularity. As you can see, the space for what looks like eight brushes per pot. So there's 16 total. Both can obviously hold plenty of water. There's long been a discussion as to whether you should keep your brushes horizontally or brush tip down. Never brush tip up anyway. But these definitely will help keep that brush tip down and stop anything that's dry and going up into the ferrule. These are the two kind of slab panels that contain the wet palette. So at the moment they're just empty. And they got secure clips on each side, and those clips will attach to other units in this as well. And these are dry palettes, or you could at a push use them for small pieces, I suppose, small model pieces. I don't tend to use a dry palette myself, as we don't use kind of heavy body paints. But I'd imagine these are finding use somewhere. If nothing else, they could hold like mixed contrast paints, and they're watertight as well. They're the clips, nice and secure. Everything felt really well produced. All the materials are good. Plastic's plastic, but it didn't feel brittle. So inside the smaller box, these are the sponges for the wet palette. There's two of those, and these are cardboard envelopes that contain the wet palette paper. 10 sheets in each pack. Let's open it up. I was quite surprised how thick these were, which was really nice. These are thicker than the standard sponges I get with a normal wet palette. They felt nice and dense, and they fit the container perfectly with a tiny little gap around the edge, which just allows you to see the water level. If you use this and you're worried about kind of mold build-up as usual, I'd recommend sticking a copper 2p, 2 penny pence underneath the sponge. These are the envelopes that contain the palette paper. They're meant to contain 10 each. They feels like there might be more in there, but the paper feels nice and thick. It's got a printed pattern on one side and a plain on the other, and the instructions explain to use the paint goes on the plain side of the paper only. It fill the wet palette up. It's got a nice deep reservoir in it, so I'd imagine it will hold plenty of water and won't evaporate too quickly. Just level out that water. Paper goes on. It held its shape nicely. I've had palette papers before that have kind of like, they'll curl up and they get ridged and you need to iron them down. This stayed nice and flat. I did a small test with some paint. Standard Pro Acryl acrylic model paint. There was no initial dispersion. Paper had a nice smooth finish to it. And using the standard amount of water that I normally do, it seemed to spread and kind of dilute the paper, not dilute on the paper normally. Good flow. Paper seemed to be fine. Again, this is for the like a dry palette. This would be more useful for traditional artists, I feel. Again, I just thought I'd test it. Each of the little palette wells is perfectly watertight, so you get no bleed over. You could also use the lid, where it's divided into the same cell pattern. You could use the lid as well as a small palette. Overall, I definitely recommend this if you've got very limited space. As I can see, it's very easy to suit in any kind of desk. So yeah, highly recommended. If you click on the link down below, you can pre-order this on Indiegogo. And the Kickstarter's finished. Whether there's a late version, I'm not sure, but definitely recommended. It's a good product.